All right, this negotiating. I've heard you're negotiating about, I've heard you speak on it. I've spoken to you about it a little bit, but I love what you have to say because you really break it down and break down the personality so it becomes clear and everything makes a lot more sense when you're dealing with these agents who can be intimidating,
Right.
especially in the luxury real estate industry. And then as you do it more and more, you just then it just gets really fun because you know what you're in for. But tell us a little bit break that down for us on negotiating and what makes a great negotiator in luxury real estate or in real estate and how do you do it?
Well, I'm obsessed with it because of my background, my upbringing. And even today, after 45 years, I still feel outgunned by my clients. When you sell a $5 million or a $10 million house in my market, that's a big deal. But the people you're dealing with are doing transactions in their business in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And so they have way more experience than I'll ever have. And so how do I equalize the playing field? So I really thought about it long and hard. I took a lot of classes, did a lot of study. I studied with a guy who wrote the book Getting to Yes, who I think is fabulous. He's passed away now, but he negotiated the nuclear arms treaty that we still live under with the Soviet Union. And he taught at Harvard. I spent a week with him at Harvard, negotiating with him one-on-one in front of a class of 200 lawyers from around the world. And I learned a ton. And plus, I deal with really rich people here. And sometimes we have a billionaire on one side of the transaction, and sometimes we have them on both sides of the transaction. So studying all those decades of experience and interactions I've had, I've come up with 3 rules for negotiation that guide me and help me be a better negotiator, and I teach these to other people. The number 1 is to build standing. And by the way, 2 quick points. The best negotiation is no negotiation. So the better your presentation, for example, the less you're going to have to negotiate on price and commission. As 2 prime examples. The better your presentation, the less you have to negotiate. If you don't want to be eaten, stay away from the table. When you're dealing with really rich people, you don't want to be chewed up. Stay away from the table as long as possible. So the stronger your presentation, the greater your standing, the less you will have to negotiate. What is standing? It's your perception of preeminence in the marketplace. You can have it by, I'm in a resort market. I still wear a jacket and tie that helps build my standing. My experience, my decades in the business gives me a certain amount of standing. At the same time, real estate is very much a what have you done for me lately business. So that only takes me so far. The best standing you can have is from knowing about your, I hate to use the word adversary, but knowing as much as you can about the other side and building allies that can help you get that information and be on your side. But having lots of market knowledge, market data, and really understanding the wants, needs, and desires of the person on the other side. That's how you build standing. Number 2 is never assume. When I negotiated with Dr. Fisher, who wrote the book Getting to Yes, we would begin every morning at this Harvard negotiation class where he and I would negotiate over him giving me a signed a first edition copy of his book. And, once again, I made a complete utter abject fool out of myself in front of 200 lawyers from around the world at Harvard Law School. And but there's something about making a fool of yourself that really drives home the learning. And that's where I really learned, don't assume that the other person wants what you would want in the same situation. You really need to find out what do they really want and why is that important to them.
Exactly.
In high-end real estate, the goal for some sellers is not always to get the highest price. We've had sellers who happily, in a multiple offer situation, will take $1 million less from one buyer who's not going to tear their house down. So you really need to understand what do they want and why do they want it, and don't just assume you do. And I can guarantee you, they don't think the way you do, and they don't have the same values you do. So you cannot assume you know what they want because you just don't.
Well, and I love what you said. Well, finish what you're saying though.
That's okay. What was your point?
So what you said reminded me. I actually have a client who negotiates a lot for a living, and it's exactly what you said. But he said to me, people have a position and they have an interest. And the position is, like you said, I want to sell my house for this price.
Right.
But if that's all you know,
right.
But what is their interest?
This is positional negotiation.
Right. Exactly.
Positional negotiation is banging your head against the other person's head. You get nowhere. And there's a lot of positional negotiating in real estate. People are stuck on their price for some reason. People are stuck on a commission.
Nobody's exploring that. What is their interest?
You need to get to their interests. And you can't assume what they are. So what you're saying is that you need to find out what their interests are, but many agents shortcut and they figure, well, if I was in his shoes, my interest would be this.